Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to a quick review of Haruki Murakami's The City and Its Uncertain Walls. What I want to do is give a brief overview of the book's about, tell you the things that I liked, tell you the things that I didn't like. Jumping straight into it, this is the story of a man, like many stories are, but he alternates between the story of his life as he transitions his career to the head librarian in a small town, and also his life in this fantasy-like city, with its walls. And it's magical. There's unicorns that walk the streets, and he has the power to read dreams. It's all very vague and mysterious, and his lost lover from his teenage years also lives in the town, but she's trapped in her teenage body. If it sounds strange, it's because it is strange. This is a strange book. This is my first Murakami book I ever read. Obviously, Murakami is a globally beloved author. I never read any of his work before. So I decided to start with the newest one just to dip my toes in before maybe reading his more popular, more well-received books. But I went into it completely blind. I walked into a bookstore, got upsold, and I just bought it on a whim. It was too expensive, but I bought it anyway. I wanted to go in blind. And it was an interesting journey, at least, I would say, that I had with this book. The whole first part is written in the second person, which is how you know you're dealing with an artiste in the form of this book. And it's the word that came to mind in terms of the writing style of this first part that was in second person. It felt very delicate. It felt very wispy. I don't know. Is that a way to describe writing? It just felt like everything was kind of dreamlike. And I think that's the vibe that he was going for. Very like you could pierce it and it would all just fade away. Right? Because it's about, the first part's really about this romance between this boy and this girl that he meets, and she talks about this town that she visits in her head, or her real body is, and she's just a shadow of herself. But he's falling in love with her. They're going on dates, and all of a sudden she disappears. It all felt very dreamlike. And I was kind of digging it a little bit. I did not know this was going to be a romance story, even though there is the silhouette of a couple on the front and on the back, in case it wasn't clear enough. But I clearly don't pay attention to these things. But I kind of liked this second-person weirdness. I kind of got used to it, because the whole time he's saying, like, you, as if I was the teenage woman. And you know what? I was kind of buying into this romance, and I bought it, this teenage love, this lost love, and then it transitions to his first visit into the town and his reuniting with her, but you get the sense that things aren't as it seems, and you realize that he finally found this town that she was speaking of when they were teens, when he was an adult. And then it does a hard cut for the rest of the book, where he wakes up in his everyday life, and even though he thought he was staying in the town, he's in real life again. He gets his job at this mysterious library, more tomfoolery is afoot, and it's kind of like a whole mystery of like, what is this town? How do you get to this town? How does the town work? There's the concept of like your shadow and separating yourself from the shadow. You have to leave your shadow to enter this town. And he does leave his shadow, but his shadow is back with him in the real world. How did he get back in the real world? All these questions about like this world and how much magic is real. How much of this is just in his head? Is he just insane? Has he had a mental breakdown? All of these questions are posed. And the first book, it's not really pretending to answer them. It's very dreamlike. It's very like, ooh, you walked me down the streets of this city. The unicorns brushed past you. And then it comes very hard cut, like, I woke up, what was that? And I'm like, I'm with you, brother. And we kind of explore him, and I enjoyed that part as well. However, this book does go off the rails. And maybe a better way of putting it is it never started on the rails. Because it was so weird, reading a book in the second person is weird. Everything that was happening was weird. And you know instantly it's all a metaphor for something, but I was just waiting for the shoe to drop. I was waiting for more answers to be uncovered as the character was looking for answers, which kind of clued me into, like, I don't know, maybe he'd find out, like, what took him to this world. Like, how did the girl get stuck in the world? Like, is she dead? Did she disappear? Like, what does this world mean, like, other than, like, the metaphor of it? And Murakami never gets past the it's a metaphor phase. There is no, like, journey the characters really go on. It's kind of like these events happen. They visit the world. He goes back to the world. He leaves the world, and he leaves his shadow, but he gets his shadow back. And he kind of just pushes off like the legwork of like having an interesting story behind the metaphor of losing your shadow, whatever you interpret that to may be. He kind of just leaves that to you to, well, it happened. And you can take the value from that if you wish. And I really disliked that, to be honest. Not because like I hate it when metaphors aren't explained to me. That wasn't necessarily the issue. If you made me write, if I was like a high schooler reading this book and you made me write an essay about it, I'm sure I could spin some yarn about what this means. But to be frank, after you lose the novelty of the second person in the first part, after the story shifts in his real world from like the former head librarian of his body is a ghost, after you get past that strange introduction and he starts focusing more on like this kid who also wants to visit the town, it just becomes very, very boring, which is one of literature's greatest, most grievous sins for a bad book for me, is that it's just boring. So I thought like back in the real world, like obviously Murakami is a strong enough author, like I was digging it. Sure, he's taking over this small town library. It's going to turn into like about literature and like finding stories and like the story this girl told herself as a kid. Like maybe he finds that in literature and spreads the love of books. It's a love letter to libraries. That's what I read in one of the reviews. Oh, and truly a love letter to literature. This is not about literature. This is not about libraries, even though he works in a library and he likes books. It's not about books. It's I don't even know what it's about because he meets this head librarian who's a ghost. Sure, ghosts are real, and there's another person that works at the library whose pure job is to just spit exposition at you. Oh, well, this character, actually, well, they died because of this tragic thing. Back to my being an NPC. Oh, this character is very mentally challenged, but he can read books very fast, and he wants to talk to you, disappear back into the shadows. And none of the characters outside of the main one are particularly interesting. I would say maybe the ghost is interesting. And we never revisit the mystery or the pull of the romance from the first part of the book, which is like, I don't know, like 80, 100 pages or so. It never gets a conclusion. We never like circle back to that romance angle, to this woman that he lost when he was a teenager. He never really tackles the trauma that it gave him, that the person that he loved when he was young, his first love, just disappeared. We never really tackle that. It just becomes more about him helping this kid get back into the town. And when he gets back into the town, what does it mean to? It insists upon itself, Lois. It insists upon itself and its metaphor. And quite frankly, it sounds like I hated it. I didn't hate it. It was just a tremendous waste of time after the halfway point. I'm glad I read it for its introduction. I thought the first part was interesting enough to justify itself, but it became more and more generic and it gave me no answers, so it left me with nothing to show for it. This is not a book I would recommend to anybody. And it's sad because I know this is a well-beloved author. And it's sad because I am more hesitant to pick up like Norwegian Wood, which I know is a very well-beloved book by Murakami. Not because I think that one has to be bad. I'm just like not going to give an author like that a second chance very quickly. Because I can infer from the way that this book is written that his books are very deep, very, very metaphorical, and maybe like his hits, they hit. It makes you feel something. But this one, I just felt like it just felt rambly. It felt strange for strangeness' sakes. And if you're not going to have an answer to the questions you pose, either by plot, like literal answers that the story and the characters get, or by like answers, meanings of life that you can apply to the book, like a life lesson. The lesson isn't good enough that like the real world is good too. You don't have to live in a fantasy the whole time. Because I don't even know whether that's what the book was saying, but that's the only lesson that I could infer from the way that this book ends. And I could have inferred that ending from the first time he escaped the magical city of doom. So the whole lead up to him going back to it, only to get no resolution on the romance plot that we spent the first part on, it just left me confused. It felt set up for a story that never happened, and maybe was never interesting in the first place. So overall, can't say that I quite enjoyed this one, guys, and took out the majority of my month to finish it. Left a sour taste in my mouth, but I'm glad I tried something. I'm proud of me for going out of my way to try something new, because you know what? That is where you learn something. And I'm not going to be scared of random books. This isn't going to scare me off of random books. Maybe it scares me off of Murakami a little bit. But overall, like, technically, the writing was fine. I didn't find it, I know some reviews, I had to look up, this is one of those books where, like, it's so unenjoyable that you read reviews afterwards, like, did I just miss the plot? It seems like it is getting mostly unfavorable reviews. And some of the reviews were like, oh, like, he's too descriptive on boring things. I have no issues with that. A lot of my books spend a lot of time on meaningless things. I like to sit in the world a little bit, and there were some cozy moments in this book, maybe to end it on a positive note. His writing style is very delicate. It is very dreamlike. It is very comforting in some ways. Like his talking about his daily routine from going to his house to the coffee shop to the library, the kind of daily routine of that, just reading about that, does kind of make you feel nice and cozy. Like you're at the library, you're drinking a cup of coffee, reading a couple books at the library. I like that feeling. And a second person was an interesting kind of writing style as well that felt comforting. It's just the fact that at a certain point when you realize that the story is not going anywhere, it just becomes very surface level and very boring in that regard, which is unfortunate. But that is the summary of my thoughts. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought in the comments, because I'd be hard-pressed to think there's argument out there that convinced me that this book is secretly good, even if there was some hidden meaning that I'm too simpleton to understand. I really don't think that is the case. But let me know if you read it, what you thought in the comments, or if maybe I should just like toss this one out. It was a rare flop on his case, and I should check out another one of his books. Which of his books should I try next? Is my next question. But be sure to like and subscribe if you liked the video and you want to see more like in the future. And as always, thanks for sticking around.